I give the call to the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Disability Services.
Thank you, Acting President. And I want to start by thanking the Honourable Lorna Harper for bringing such a great motion into this chamber for us to discuss. And I'll start off by saying what a great debate it has been this morning, and hearing each other's experiences and the respect, I think, is a key thing that's came out this morning, is that we understand the past and we're trying to rebuild inclusive future. And I also want to give my respects to the previous minister who's in this chamber as well, the Honourable Stephen Dawson, who I know worked tirelessly in the disabilities space and has a very good reputation amongst the organisations for putting in some hard yards in the last term. And I also want to acknowledge that I'm representing the Minister for Disabilities, the Honourable Don Punch, who also has passion in this space that I think has been great for the industry to have these two ministers back to back pushing what is a very strong agenda on how we can improve the lives of people with disabilities. I just want to go through a couple of things that have been said. Obviously, the Honourable Lorna Harper touched on the 4 pillars, and that is, I'll get into a little bit more detail about the 4 pillars because I don't think we delve too hard into it. But they have been critical within the way the strategy has been put up. And obviously, it's a 10-year strategy, which we're only very fresh into, and I acknowledge the 2-year action plans, very responsive, and the way that they rotate mean that they can be updated and they can be formulated in a way that if there is change, like for example a pandemic, we can navigate our way through what is a more critical space that needs to be identified and worked on. Peers Place, I think that rang a bit of a bell to me, the Honourable Lorna Harper, because seeing an inclusive playground when going out with the nephews down to the park, it just makes you feel good to know that a child with a disability will have the ability to play just like everybody else and be in that space together. I think that's really good, and I'm looking forward to getting down to have a look. As you said, it sounds pretty amazing. I don't know if I'll be able to fit down the slide, but we'll give it a go. The Honourable Peter Foster, inclusive events grants, yes, absolutely. That was something that has been really great out of this strategy. I think giving local governments and organisations the ability to get funding to create inclusive events just is another step in the right direction. Absolutely. And I also note that the Honourable Peter Foster mentioned the underrepresentation of people with disabilities, particularly in employment and within probably all levels of government, from federal, state to local government. I feel a little bit of optimism, and I think we're getting there. And I think we're getting there with a lot of minority groups. You know, I think it's one of those things where we've just got to keep getting better at it. And we do have a few things I'll go into a bit later on that we're trying to bring together to make there even more representation of people with disabilities in the disability space. The COVID effects have been very, very heavy and harsh on people with disabilities, and the Honourable Peter Foster identified that. I do like the all-terrain wheelchairs the Honourable Peter Foster mentioned. I have seen one, and they look like something out of a Starship Troopers movie. They've got massive wheels and they can get through anything, and that's given the ability for somebody to get down to Exmouth, onto the foreshore there, and potentially go out to, you know, the beautiful sites of Oyster Stacks and Turquoise Bay, which is just a great opportunity. And I think the more accessible tourism we have, the better it'll be for our state, and not just for people within Western Australia, but obviously when we get back to some normality, people coming from around the world and across Australia. The Office of Disabilities I will touch on. The Honourable Peter Collier touched on, obviously, just briefly, the Commission, and I'll go through some things with the Office of Disability that I think may assure you a little bit on where we're heading with that. I do take on board what you've said, but I do think that we have put in place something that takes that area space up. So hopefully I can answer some of them questions. You did mention, obviously, it's a bit early to judge, and I would agree with you. It is absolutely a 10-year strategy that I've said previously, it is adaptable within our action plans. It's something that's going to be a moving feast, and I'm confident that we're off to a good start, but we just need to keep tracking and ensure that we keep on to it. Look, the NDIS comments around empowerment, absolutely agree. The feedback I get from just in Kalgoorlie from GIFSA and EPIC is people are feeling the empowerment, and they make a decision to, instead of being with this organisation, taking someone on individually because they love that person, and that's the person they want to be connected with the whole time. And that to me is a huge step in the right direction. And I agree with teething problems, and I know the former minister would have had some pretty stressful days and nights in respect of the rolling out of the NDIS. And all I can say is that I'm hearing now more and more success stories than I am negative stories, which is a positive turn. And I look forward to seeing the communication of NDIS improved as well, because some of the feedback I get is the inability to communicate with someone, and the helpline, I believe, was shut down at one point as well, which is just madness. There's a few things that I think on a national scale we need to ensure that a little bit of change for someone with a disability can be a massive change and a massive effect to their life, particularly not being able to get assistance through what is a very complex situation sometimes. The Honourable Jackie Jarvis, never going to call on you to be a carer for me. Thank you for highlighting that to the House. Thank you very much also for bringing up the innovation funding. I think that was something that the previous minister and the current minister worked very, very hard on, and I think it makes a lot of sense. The pillar of participate and contribute is absolutely one of those spaces that is going to be focused on over the next 10 years as one of the 4 pillars. You mentioned Good Sammies, and yes, they do an amazing job in respect of their support to people with disabilities. I'm actually attending an event this weekend with them to celebrate the International People with Disabilities Day as well. And meaningful employment was what else was touched on, and I think it goes without saying that we know meaningful employment creates social engagement, feeling of being part of a team, and support, which I think is really important. The Honourable Martin Pritchard, thank you for raising the Access Plus. Is an amazing organisation I've just recently had the pleasure of engaging with, and when we went to that gala ball, naively rocking up, not knowing what to expect, and then being in a room with everybody doing Auslan was quite an experience. And I have to say, one of the very eye-opening experiences I'll take with me when beyond leaving this place. You end up being the person that feels like you have a disability, but they make you feel so at home and so comfortable. And we were lucky enough to have interpreters. I think the Auslan interpreters are phenomenal, what they do. And what they achieved just in that one night for me was being able for me to engage with people that were so happy and telling me that they don't have a disability. You know, they don't feel as though they do, because they can communicate. They got 2 legs, they got 2 arms, and they made very clear to me that maybe I'm the one with the disability. So it was really good, and I can't speak highly enough of me and the minister's night at that event. Access Plus were amazing. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of things in the time that I have. I think importantly, the Innovation Fund, the McGowan Government Innovation Fund, is a key feature of the implementing and achieving the vision of the strategy. The $5 million Innovation Fund will stimulate the innovative ways to increase employment opportunities for people with disabilities and enhance independence at home and in the community. And that's important. Within the community, I think, is the key part to that, is the ability to be spending locally and building your local economy whilst also being inclusive benefits everyone within that community, not just the people with disabilities, but everybody. And I've heard so many stories of people who have hired somebody with a disability to get so much more out of that employment through their own business which has been a really good success. So we commenced that in 2022, and it included in the initial round 2.5 million, which is a really good start. And I understand that the Minister for Disabilities will announce the successful applicants for the Innovation Fund in January 2022. So we're looking forward to some of the new adventures that are going to be coming out of that innovation space, and I look forward to being able to talk about them in the future here in this place. So the Office of Disabilities, I said that I'd touch on that. We are very proud to have established the state's Office of Disabilities as part of the 2021-2022 budget to promote the rights and interests of people with disability and the broader disability sector. The establishment of an Office of Disability will ensure disability continues to be the forefront of the state government's focus and that there is a strong voice advocating for people with disabilities across government, the disability sector and the broader community. The Office will act as a vital conduit of information and knowledge on the range of quality of services people with disability require. So envisaging the hubs type scenario where there would be the ability and access to a one-stop shop on advocacy and information. The Department of Communities, the Office will provide disability sector stewardship, advice on state and Commonwealth systems and drive work and innovation to advance inclusion and participation of people with disabilities in Western Australia. The Office will also provide leadership through a dedicated team to implement, monitor and further develop West Australia for Everyone State Disability Strategy 2020-2030. So that to me is impressive because, as I said earlier, there's a bit of fluidness to it and there's a bit of a changing environment. That is something that we need to adapt to, and that office will have the ability to do that. And I think that, I hope that gives some reassurance to the Honourable Peter Collier that there is a space there that has got advocacy and pushing the agenda of disabilities further. So I hope that that's given him some assurance. Obviously, the International Day of People with Disability grants was touched on, and again, we have been running them since 2017. Multiple grants for events across Western Australia to celebrate International Day of People with Disabilities that highlights the benefits of inclusive communities. $100,000 available in 2021 in sponsorship for inclusive events and activities. As I said earlier, to me that is a huge start to getting the community to come along on this journey with us, which is absolutely critical. So I could go on and on and on because it is absolutely a strategy to me that that has so many different angles to it. The 4 pillars break down where the strategy is heading, and I'll touch on them briefly before I stop actually. Participate and contribute, as the Honourable Jackie Jarvis mentioned. Another pillar is inclusive communities, which you can see ties in with the grants, ties in with innovation, and ties into the strategy. Another pillar is living well, and then rights and equity. So these pillars will define the strategy that we're seeing roll out now for the next 9 years, and I'm looking forward to seeing more inclusivity for people with disabilities. And I say to any employer out there, take the chance, have a go, because you do not understand the benefits your organisation will get by having someone passionate and driven to be a part of your business. So thank you.